Friday, the 9th of June 2023. This is another one of those what a fuck moments. And in this one, I want to talk about BRICS and some of the things that we need to keep in mind when we talk about BRICS. Because BRICS is not simply a grouping of a few countries that want to trade. There's a hell of a lot of things around the whole BRICS concept that you need to keep in mind when you talk about BRICS. Because if you don't do it, you will most probably find out that you've got a skewed view of the whole thing. And I'm not going to say that I've got all the information and know everything and understand everything. All I know is that we have to look carefully at the concept of BRICS and not merely BRICS as such. There's a lot of people that are making statements and claims around BRICS, but it's clear that they don't really see the bigger picture and what it is all about. And I want to talk about BRICS and the ANC. This BRICS and ANC thing is busy turning into a clusterfuck for the ANC. And mostly because the ANC management structure is not the sharpest knives in the drawer. This cadre deployment thing of theirs is in everything. We get excited about cadres that are being deployed to SOEs and so forth. It's the same story inside the movement itself. They do the same thing there. They don't select the sharpest and brightest minds in their organization. They don't do it. Just look at Cyril's cabinet. There are people sitting in that cabinet. Guys, I don't want to be rude about it, but you have to question their IQ. Many of them have no idea what they're supposed to do, but they talk a lot and they carry the right color berets and the right color scarves and the right color dresses and all of that. But that's all. They have no idea what the hell they're involved in. And that is going to destroy the ANC. Stupidity is going to destroy the ANC. There's a story that Zuma got us into BRICS. Now I have done Skidmarks about it and I have mentioned it many times. Zuma didn't get us into BRICS. Russia and China pulled us into BRICS. And they pulled us into BRICS due to the strategic importance of the Cape Sea route. And I have done Skidmarks on that. That is what it's all about. That Cape Sea route. So Zuma, let's say then, Zuma got us into BRICS, but it looks to me like Cyril is trying to get us out of BRICS. And this is most probably going to make a lot of people jump up straight for me saying that. But listen to the things, listen to the facts. He has no choice. His WEF masters is demanding that from him. And the DA is supporting them. Think about that. Now these statements will make many people frown, and a number will start swearing now. What is going on? The Russians and the Chinese are the main players behind BRICS. Putin and Xi has a vision They want a multipolar world, and BRICS is the chosen vehicle. This is actually a war between the US/G7 and the rest of the world. Putin has made it clear that he is done with the US hegemony and the EU colonial mindset, and the rest of the colonization victims are inspired. They see a future of prosperity versus a past of slavery and oppression. It has a nice ring to it. Free and fair trade. The West has lost the PR war on this one already. But let's look at the weapons in the G7 arsenal. 1. The UN. The UN is captured by the US, with the Security Council to be used to justify the G7's bombing and destruction of countries. Number 2, the WHO. This is a globalist tool that the stupid Biden is even deploying against the US themselves. A tool that are working on stealing the independence and sovereignty of the world's countries through this crazy pandemic treaty. 3. The ICC. This is a pseudo-global court of justice, but the US is not part of it and immune to this court. However, it is used by the US through its EU vassals to terrorize African leaders, and now for Putin. With a Putin warrant, they have overplayed their hand. 4. The IMF and the World Bank. I bundle them together. They are the forces that enslave countries through debt, exorbitant debts that make zero economic or commercial sense. Yet they pump the cash in and enslave generations. At the same time demanding austerity measures that fucks the citizens and effectively destroys industrial development through green demands. Just go and look what they did to Ghana. These are also the tools that is used to destroy food production by pushing organic and sustainable practices. That is highly toxic to the agricultural development and growth in countries. They are buggering around with food security. 5. Brigades and brigades of NGOs. These are the cretins that infest and infect every aspect of the target's social systems. Schools, farms, hospitals, churches, everything. And they create chaos under the disguise of aid. Then 6, the dollar. This one is their most powerful weapon, and they weaponized it well. With this, they controlled the global trade. This is also the kingpin in their sanctions arsenal. NATO. Under the guise of being a defensive alliance, they have destroyed millions and millions of lives. A week ago, a book was published in America, and the author claims that NATO and the US has killed over 300 million people in the world. Think about that. 8. Media. This is a powerful tool, and it has been used very effectively to keep the Western citizens in the dark. Xi and Putin must get the credit. They are excellent strategists. More important, they do not react impulsively and they play the long game. Xi was tormented with a Pelosi visit to Taiwan, and although responding quite vocally in the media, No physical reactions. That freaked the warmongers out. Putin is tormented with a weapon escalation in Ukraine, but he is sticking to his plan, never responding angrily, and in reply to weapon escalations by NATO, just calmly face it and then destroy it. So both men is just laughing at the propaganda machine. While she was in Moscow visiting Putin, and this is an incident that a lot of people overlook. Putin and she spent 5 hours together, alone, no staff with them, nobody. And up to this day, nobody knows what those two men were discussing in that 5 hours. 5 hours is a long time. Keep that in mind. While the G7 is completely engulfed in the Ukraine fiasco, Putin and Xi is winning hearts and minds. They are shaping the Middle East, and the Arabs love them for it. Peace has been eluding them for decades, and under the devious destruction and meddling by the G7, watch this space. Israel is especially vulnerable. Iran is shooting up in recognition, and the peace between Iran and Saudi, these two will shape the Middle East. They are the undisputable powerhouses there. Most of this monumental achievement is to the credit of Xi. Both Iran and Saudi wants to join BRICS. Noteworthy is that Saudi has already been accepted into the BRICS bank. Seems like Saudi will fund the bank. Another piece of the puzzle appears. BRICS now have the counterweight for the IMF World Bank. What must be noted is a statement by the BRICS Bank President. He informed the BRICS members and aspiring members that defaults on payments or accusations of sanction breaching by the IMF World Bank will not count against them when they are applying to the BRICS Bank for assistance. What is worth to consider here is this. He's actually saying to the aspiring members, it's okay to default on your loans from the G7. Wow! Is he hinting at dumping their debt? If all these countries just decide, that's it, they're not going to pay the debts, what will the West do? What can they do? Repossess those countries? Good luck with that. This whole BRICS thing, I am sure that in the dark, quiet studies sitting in front of the fireplace, these guys are planning to bankrupt the West. Syria. Here, Russia are the force behind the scenes. Putin has a good relationship with Erdogan from Turkey, and his friendship with Assad is no secret. Assad is back in the Arab League. And final piece in the puzzle is for Turkey to withdraw their forces from Syria. That was delayed with Erdogan fighting a presidential election. An election where the West tried to get their puppet in. Bad luck for them. The Turkish people voted for Erdogan and against becoming a US vassal. This is a hell of a blow to the G7. And what makes it more irritating to the warmongers is that Turkey is part of NATO. It is almost as if Putin has an agent in NATO. This makes the G7 nervous, and we can already see signs of trying to get Turkey out of NATO. Problem for NATO is that Turkey is the most powerful army in Europe. So, if they dump Turkey, they really have got nothing without the US. Turkey is interested in joining BRICS. Imagine that. BRICS member on the border of the EU. And I just read an hour or so ago, it's basically Mexico has applied for membership of BRICS. Imagine that. Currently, 19 countries has applied for membership. And that would be formalized in the BRICS conference in August in Gauteng. So, Putin and Xi has managed to set up an effective counterbalance for IMF and the World Bank and for the G7. So the BRICS grouping is the opposition for the G7, the BRICS Bank is opposition for the IMF and the World Bank. Now, you must think for a moment, there's 19 new members moving into BRICS. What is the next almost natural, logical step? These members of BRICS may decide that seeing that they've got very little or almost zero representation in the Security Council of the UN, what if they decide that BRICS needs its own Security Council? Think about that. Sanctions busted by BRICS trading partners, trading in local currencies. This is breaking the power of the dollar, and with it, the sanction tool. The proposed BRICS currency is another massive blow for the dollar and could lead to severe economic decline in the G7. It is expected that this will also be concluded at the Congress in August. All this thanks to the G7 sanctions against Russia, which is causing massive damages in the G7, while Russia is just getting stronger. This is a very motivating and inspirational for BRICS members and applicants. This is a deadly loss for the West. Might even be fatal to some G7 members. The BRICS Congress in August is extremely important in the long game played by Putin and Xi. The West is desperate to derail it because they fully realize it will be their Armageddon. And then, bam! ICC warrant for the rest of Putin. All bullshit, but threatening the presence of Putin at the conference. The West knows that it will be a huge PR blow for BRICS if a key player is prevented from attending this conference. And they are willing to do anything to achieve that. We can already see how the US is stirring shit in South Africa. And all of that is to push the ANC to make a stand and say they will arrest Putin. False bomb threat, the Lady R fiasco, like the Russian plane at Waterkloof that night, now the Chinese spy ship in Cape Town, the dropping of the rand, and I see tonight the rand is picking up, coming back. It's the best it's been in a month. Threats around Alcoa and the ICC warrant. All things used and employed to destabilize the environment for BRICS Congress. The DA is playing for the West on many of these points. Now for Cyril. He is playing for both sides, G7 and BRICS, but he is going to get burned. It is common knowledge that he has received a lot of money from the West. He personally, that's apart from all the loans that he got for the country. So he owes the West. He is also driving the green thing to the detriment of Eskom, the economy and specifically industry. He is overseeing the fracturing of society with these racist laws and this gender things, and in the gender thing, the DA is with him all the way. All these things on instruction from the WEF masters, and in many the DA is working with him. Naturally, they will, because they've got the same paymasters. His problem is that these things clash with the letter and spirit of BRICS. The economical destruction is not in line with Putin and Xi's plans. And there are indications that they are beginning to squeeze Cyril. Remember his sudden cancellation of his trip to Davos? And he gave a lame excuse. I'm of the opinion that he got a WhatsApp from Putin and said, and where the hell do you think you're going? Could be. Currently, South Africa contributes basically nothing to BRICS and is actually basically a dirt blotch on the BRICS table. Almost like the guest that tips his glass of red wine on the white tablecloth at dinner. The real value for BRICS is the Cape Sea route. That is the reason why we are in BRICS. The naval exercises irritated the crap out of the West, and in reality, we contributed almost nothing. It is my opinion that it was in essence a fact-finding mission by the Chinese and Russian navies. That is what I think. Just think, Russian and Chinese officers are really highly skilled and qualified and true professionals. And what do we have? What do these professionals think of our appointed officers? Think for yourself. Think. The ICC warrant is a desperate attempt to keep Putin out. He cannot allow that, because that will rob him of the BRICS growth glory and hand it to Xi. The same will be true if the conference is moved to China. And Putin cannot give Xi this win, because Xi got the big win when he did that peace deal between Saudi and Iran. The DA is pushing the arrest Putin thing, and that will cost them. Nobody will arrest Putin. I will not be surprised if there is not already Spetsnaz men in South Africa, not only to protect Putin, but to make sure all delegates are okay. Windy and his leap forces will get state funerals. Now, Lady Pandor is the only one with brains in that cabinet, and she is really trying to handle the warrant issue. I also think she is the only one in cabinet that understands what is at stake. Another reality is this: who will dare to arrest Putin? But the weak link is Cyril. He is well-known, his well-known shocked indecisiveness is in our faces. Surely Putin and Xi also sees it. Ramaphosa's lack of control is now reflected by Fikile in his statement that they are looking at moving the Congress to China. That is not going to carry him any favors in Moscow. It must be frustrating for Russian officials to deal with really dumb people on various levels, but they do it for BRICS. The vast majority of people in South Africa is in favor of BRICS, and Cyril knows it. However, his financial indebtedness to the Western puppet masters is now getting out of hand, and he is caught in the middle. He is playing with people that are way out of his league and above his intellect. The West cashed in on his stupidity and greed, and he is deep in. His loyalty to the ANC forces him to stay in line with the BRICS mission. Putin and Xi most probably know everything about Cyril's games. And they will not allow him to scupper BRICS. They have the upper hand. Because if Cyril falls, Mashitele is next in line and he is a BRICS fan. So this could spell a real possibility that Cyril could fall. The West will then be the big losers. All I can see now is that BRICS cannot lose the Cape, but the ANC is dodgy under Cyril. BRICS now know that the DA is owned by the West. The only logical option is that Cyril must go. For me, it is logical that Cyril will perish. If not, BRICS is at risk. I am of the opinion that the high number of really stupid people in the ANC is almost a poisoned chalice. If the ANC do not begin to staff themselves with intelligent management, they will implode. If the cadre deployment is stopped, BEE is stopped, economical and industrial development is promoted, this morphed ANC might survive. These stupid cadres cannot sit at the table with the intelligent BRICS partners. They bring nothing positive. They are only there because of the Cape Sea route. Another risk for BRICS is that the Western propaganda machine starts smearing BRICS for human rights violations, using the racist laws of South Africa as evidence. They will use the collapsed health system, education system, and the crime-fighting systems. That will be good for us, but bad for BRICS. I have to wonder when Putin and Xi are going to take note of this potential threat. And maybe this trippy of Cyril up to Moscow, Putin might be whispering some stuff in his ears. Keep in mind, there are rumors that the Russians and Chinese are working on plans to help with the electricity issue. The electricity problem can collapse the government. If this is true, the West will be very, very angry because they are after Eskom. He who owns the power will own the country. South Africa is really the black sheep in the current BRICS. My feeling is that once all the new members gets into BRICS, South Africa's role will diminish rapidly. So in effect, the ANC is destroying our potential benefits from BRICS. The corruption, economic destruction, and service collapse that Cyril and his cronies have machined will get blowback from BRICS. Putin and Xi cannot turn a blind eye on it because it holds big risks for BRICS. Lots of things to think about, but never forget, the real war is between BRICS and the G7. If the G7 lose, the Western Empire will collapse very fast, primarily because they are bankrupt and cannot survive without the resources of BRICS. Now, I've given you now a lot of things to think about, but I'm going to summarize it. The West has been using the UN and the IMF and the WHO and the World Bank and the NGOs for a long time, and the dollar, to control and bully and NATO and bully the rest of the world. But those days are now over. BRICS is countering already a few of those components, as I explained to you. And furthermore, the horrible debt load that the G7 countries is carrying is going to become unbearable. Whereas on the BRICS side, their economies are all growing and they don't have issues with inflation, and the bulk of their debt is owned by the West And let me remind you of what that president of the BRICS Bank said. If you default on your loans to the West, it will not count against you when you apply for assistance from the BRICS Bank. Now, I am 100% sure the subliminal message there is dump your debt. The Ukraine war is bankrupting the West. The Ukraine war is disarming the West. And Putin is a patient guy. Why didn't he hurry up and clean the Ukraine up? They could have done what they're doing there. They could have done it in 2 months. They're there, going for the second year. What is behind it? Every day that war goes on, the West gets poorer. Think about it. The Russians send a lot of cheap drones. I've heard that the drone prices vary from $1,000 to $10,000. Cheap drones into Ukraine. And the Ukrainian air defense systems shoot those drones with missiles that cost from 100,000 to 500,000 rand a shot. Think about that. So, I think there's a lot of things that you can think about now. And do think. I am of the opinion that this fence sitting of Cyril has reached a point where it's going to end very badly for Cyril. And in the end, it might be the end of Cyril. And it will be a strategic good thing for BRICS, because Mashetele is pro-Russian, pro-BRICS, not pro-West. So that will be a bad shot for the West, but a good shot for BRICS. Think about that. Please give me a like and a subscribe and share the thing. Have a great evening.